All right, welcome back to part two of Program Design 101. High level, just trying to start to give you some pieces, having you watch actually build a training plan and giving you the reasons as to why I'm making the decisions that I'm making. Again, there are a million different ways to put the pieces together. Think of it like a puzzle. It doesn't matter where you start with the edges, start with the inside, start with little chunks, and then piece them all together. There are so many different ways to do it, as long as the end result is that you get the client the result that they're after. The result that you're after is that the puzzle is complete, right? It is that you have a complete picture. And so as long as you could justify why you're putting a piece where it goes and not trying to slam a piece in where it doesn't belong, right? You're not going to give Susie on her very first day of doing a workout and be like, yeah, we're going to do, a classic CrossFit 21-15-9, Susie. Like, no, that doesn't even make sense why we would do that, right? Yeah, we're going to start with kipping pull-ups. I don't even know how to do a regular pull-up. I've never done one. Never even thought I could do one. Like, so use common sense as the logic and you will be okay, all right? So I'm going to do a little screen share and then pop over to the right screen because I'm on the Zoom screen. Here we go. All right. So normally we build out all of our training plans within our app system, and it's much more of it's just from this standpoint, you'll be able to visually see everything. Whereas from the app, it just looks a little different, it's a little more complicated, and you're learning as by the app as opposed to what I want you to see here, which is the concepts, right? Of what we are after. So the first things to do is that you have to have an assessment in order to be able to pull from things. There is an entire another module video on assessments, actually several different pieces over them. And that is great information. I challenge you to watch this, do this, practice this, and then go through the assessment stuff and then come back and do this again, right? Rewatch this again. And the main reason we're doing this first, sometimes you don't have these informational biases that can make it so that you have information or analysis paralysis, as we say, from the information, right? So, what I would like you to do, right, is to make a copy of something similar to this, right? It's got the R7 approach that we use for the most part: release, reset, readiness, reactive, resistance, resiliency. It's not shown on here for a reason. And then recovery, right? So R6 and R7 are the elements that are the background here. And I want you to come up with the client that you are thinking you would like to write a training plan for. Now, maybe that's somebody that you already know and have, or maybe it is yourself. I find that writing a plan for yourself can be very difficult at times because you are overthink it more than anything else. Or it may be a family member. Just note that you may be like, I wrote you this perfect plan. Like, let's get going. I'm going to get your best results. If they haven't asked for it, it might not be the best idea. So just giving you that love there. I don't write my own family members training plans, and I do not coach them unless it is the only circumstance that is required based on the situation from a gym standpoint. Okay, so just trying to keep the peace there, especially if it's your significant other. So you're gonna write their name down. Let's call our guy Bob, spelled backwards, and then we'll write down the plan that we're gonna do. So this usually isn't here, but these are the things that we want to take into account, right? So Bob's goal is weight loss, muscle gain, right? We asked a little bit more in-depth questions. We're like, well, what specifically did you want to do? Where could I see if I snap my fingers 90 days from now and you had a perfect result, what would your body look like? And the one thing he mentioned was definitely he wants his arms to be a little bit bigger, to say they're twigs, is what he said, right? So we're going to go for those, right? Sessions, he's going to go for 2 sessions a week to start, and then he's going to want to ramp up to 3, right? Likes, he really likes, arms training, and he really likes dumbbells. Cool. That's very helpful information for us, right? Because we could have chosen a kettlebell or a dumbbell or a cable, and they would have gotten the same training effect for the most part. But what if he didn't like them? So why can't we just adapt, right? So give him some autonomy. And this is a good thing. We'll talk about that later. He dislikes, he hates core work, right? This is something that tends to be common, right? Or he hates cardio, right? Like it's okay to have these acknowledgments and be like, cool, man, I'm going to give you what you need, even though a little bit's not going to be what you like. But we're for sure going to get you the results you're after. And if you have these conversational pieces, then it won't be like, oh, I hate this guy. I hate this workout. And that's what we want. History, on and off, right? Let's say he's got no injuries for the sake of this training plan, because this is just basic. Injury stuff will be for another time. So we're good. No pain. The difference between injuries and pain, right? So sum it up nicely, right? Pain can be unlearned. So oftentimes we can experience pain, right? A signal that is going to from the brain, right? That something is wrong. Like it is a signal that is happening. And sometimes we can get addicted to that signal, and sometimes we can just unlearn that pain. Sometimes we have learned to be in pain, right? Like my back hurts when I do deadlifts because one time I did deadlifts and it hurt and I did them the wrong way. I didn't have the right form and I had way too much weight. But that's regardless. The body has learned that pain and deadlifts associate with each other. And so we can unlearn that pain. And so that's why we need to know, where are things hurting? Is it sharp? Is it acute? And that's for assessment conversation. But I wanted to differentiate, whereas an injury, something is actually injured. There is an actual source of hurt that is occurring because something is moving in the wrong way, et cetera, right? And then limitations, right? So oftentimes a shoulder limitation, hip limitation, movement limitation of some sort. And we're going to say no, because again, we need to just start with a real simple plan here. Okay. So we've got our basics for Bob. Now we're only doing 2 days a week. That makes it kind of hard. So you're going to do upper and lower? I would say no, because if he is going to do an all upper day and then he's super sore, by the time he gets back to it 7 days later, the soreness is gone and he's now finally feeling really comfortable again, but he's not getting great results because he's only doing it once a week and he can't really push that hard because he's been on and off, right? It's worse after he does his leg day. So he's going to hate you, right? It's just not going to work out that well in the overall, perspective here. Okay. So then that leaves us with a couple more options, right? Do we want to go more of an upper lower? Or not upper lower, I'm sorry. Do we want to go with a push pull on the total body perspective, or do we want to just go total body undulating? And what I mean by that is that push pull being total body push pull, not push pull legs, where push and pull are both considered just an upper body thing, but where they are considered entire push. So that would mean legs included. Pull would be legs included. So you're gonna have your hinge, you're gonna have your squat, right? For based on those two movement patterns overall. Now, that would mean that he's gonna get worked a little bit more total body, right? Which is a great thing on the front side of his body and on the back side of his body the next day. That still means an entire week before he's coming back to it, unless we use some tweaks. The other way to do it would just be to do total body, where we are literally going to, if he's got a bench press one day, he's going to have a push up the other day. And so he's still getting the same horizontal press movements so that he's going to get some really good results. So really, it's going to come down to your best discretion based on the client, based on what you're figuring out. So for simplicity, let's go with a push pull. Okay. 2 times a week, push pull. And it's total body push pull, just so you know. So we're doing that. Okay. So the release, the reset, the readiness is usually dictated and driven towards the actual assessment and what we figured out about his movement capacity, injuries, and our current pain, right? So whatever limitations we're trying to drive. Because of that, right, we are going to actually work backwards, or work from the inside out of the puzzle, if we were to use our puzzle analogy. And we're going to jump into day 1, and then this is day 2. We have day 3 down here if you wanted to keep filling these things out. But ultimately, we're going to do a 2-day-a-week plan for Bob, right? Now, here's some things. You have a selection of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 exercise slots. For most people, right, general population, working within kind of a 6 to 7 thing one time through warm up, they honestly can only get through about 3 sets of a superset here, 3 to 4 sets of a superset here, and 3 sets of a circuit here. And that's why we do this. It works really well for most people, and it checks all the boxes. And we're talking, we've done this with 1,000+ clients at this stage, which is why I'm giving you this reference for what is commonly works well. Now, if he's in a big box gym where he can't get off a piece of equipment without someone snagging it up and there's no way to superset, we're going to write a totally different plan. So again, many different ways to get the result that we're after, and that's okay. So we're going to go with our order here. And we are going to do a couple of different things, right? So, oops. You don't have to do it this way. You don't have to do anything the way that I do it. This is just what I find works really well. To superset the first 2 exercises gets the person's body warmed up all the way. If for some reason they struggle to get their body warmed up here in the warm up, We also then are usually able to fill in the gaps with things that are needed for the big main movers. You could also superset the big main movers if this is the person that struggles to go heavy enough to yield the results that you're after and or take long enough rest time. So for a person like that, that is your Energizer bunny that wants to constantly choose the lightest weight possible and get done. And then they're like, I don't know, I don't feel anything. I really need to do like 30 reps. And you're like, no, you need to go heavier. And then they barely go up to the next dumbbell set. And then you're fighting yourself on that. They may be a better candidate for supersets here, as you could be working one aspect and then the other aspect. So again, your choice. If you want to go all straight sets, go all straight sets. But you need to take into account the person's history, the person's likes, the person's relationship with exercise, and what is going to keep them engaged so that they keep coming, so that they get the results that they're after, so that they're successful, right? So we are going to do day one, right, as push. Day two is going to be our pull. Yeah, I don't really have space for these things, but I just imagine it's there. And then we're going to start to select our exercises. So obviously with push, we need to have a big press move and a big squat-based move. Those are both your push-based moves. Bob moves well, right? Doesn't have any issues with anything, okay? You choose which one you want to go first. Here's my reality. Bob likes arms, likes dumbbells. Cool. This is good to note, right? Bob is just starting back. So I need to have a squat for Bob. What if I did, I'm going to shorthand it, a dumbbell goblet squat. He's using dumbbell. He likes it. Squat, he needs it. And the goblet position still braces the biceps and turns on the core, which he doesn't like training. And so then we're able to get him some core training as well. Awesome. For our mains, most people are going to do well with 3 to 4 sets. So it could be that you start them off with 3 and then you progress to 4, right? Let's go for our second main, because we know we need to fill these things in. Well, it needs to be some form of a push. Now, it could be a vertical push, it could be a horizontal push. I say, just my suggestion, that we give him the biggest bang for his buck. There's a reason it's squat, bench, and hinge that are found in most things. Let's give him a dumbbell bench press. He likes dumbbells. It's good to go there. We'll give him 3 to 4 sets. Now, what am I using here? I'm using our 6 movement patterns that we talked about in the last video to determine every element of this. Squat, it's going to be all, I don't have the right cells here. Squat, hinge, push, these are upper, pull, single leg, but it's really lunge that we go for, can't type, and carry, right? So those are our 6 that we need to check the box on making sure we have. I also like to think, am I working in all 3 planes, right? Sagittal, transverse, oops, you get what I'm going for here. And frontal. I mean, usually it's sagittal, frontal, transverse, but still. I'm also looking for within my workouts that I have a rotational and non-rotational component. So these are all the boxes I'm trying to check within these 2 days. It's a lot. I mean, I hit all of them. That's okay. Okay. So here's the thing. I've got my mains. Dumbbell squat, dumbbell bench. Sweet. Well, I know that day 1 kind of has the big blocks here. So this is good. We're on the right track. We know that most people tend to need, right, some form of these other things. So how can we do this? Let's fill in our gaps, okay? So with my 1A, my 1B, these are the ones where it's like going from our warm-up into the main part of the workout. I want to try as much as possible to have these be what I call primers. They are priming the body to be ready for the next 2 things, right? They're priming the body to be essentially able to handle the next load, right? For most humans, the beauty of this, especially on a push-pull day, and this is why I was using this as an example, most humans need more posterior work than they need anterior work, meaning they need more hamstring, glute, and back muscle training than they do on the front. And if we look at the back of the muscles, right, the backside, right, your glutes, biggest muscle group in the body, lats, second biggest muscle in the body. And then when you look at the overall aspect of the back itself, in comparison, if you're just going a frontal view here, your pecs are everything. And then you hit the delts, but your pecs, one muscle, everything. If I were to spin around, you're going to see rhomboid, you're going to see lat, you're going to see upper trap, you're going to see mid trap, you're going to see rear delt, you're probably going to see some teres minor, depending on like how much, and some impetus radius, depending on how much you have. Definitely the lat coming down, right? You get, it's fine. It's not, you may see some serratus anterior here popping out on the side, depending on the human being, if they have like more narrow, rounded rib cage and instead of being compressed A to P with a wide infrasternal angle. But ultimately, like your pecs kind of cover the whole gamut, and you got a lot more muscles to work on the backside. Your glutes are that biggest muscle on the backside, that really help with so much stuff. So ultimately, we want to hit more on the backside than on the front side for most people. Okay, so that's where a primer can be really beneficial. So what would happen when you're doing a squat? Your quads would do the majority of that movement pattern, which means your hamstrings are your antagonist. Like they are there, and as well as your adductors, your inside thighs, to stabilize your body as you go down into that squat, to make sure your pelvis is in the right position and make sure your knees don't cave. Like there's all this stuff that is happening based on the glute beads and etc. that we are looking for. So how could we like turn that on a little bit better to make that squat so much better? And we're getting then 2 for 1 because we're probably going to train it over here on the pull day. So hopefully you followed that and that makes sense, right? Then I've got a bench press. Well, what needs to be turned on and stabilized on the bench press? The lats, right? Because then if the lats are able to pull down in, stabilize, you've got serratus and your rhomboids on the back side that kind of create this sling for, or almost like a train track for your shoulder blade to sit on your back. Cool. And your shoulder blade then needs to be able to slide forward so you get internal rotation so that you can actually press some weight through. So how can I maybe like stabilize that guy back there? Cool. So how can I stabilize here? How can I stabilize here? Let me get some primers. This is a great way to activate some things that are going to be happening. So what if I did, there's many different ways to do it, kettlebell dead bug. So a kettlebell dead bug, think of it as a classic dead bug. I'm getting rotation that is happening, core engagement, which I need to prepare myself, hip flexion to prepare myself for the squat. And because I've got the weight in my hands as it's going over, I'm getting that lat to be able to pull me down, keeping my rib cage down. So I'm getting a ton of core, but I'm also preparing my upper body a little bit for having that shoulder blade move for the bench press. So I'm getting win-win-win here. You can choose many different exercises to do this, okay? There's just one example. Now, if I also want my shoulder blades to slide back and down and around when I'm doing that bench press so that my shoulders stay primed and ready to go, and I potentially want to make sure that I can hold by driving my elbows up underneath for that goblet, what if I did like a cable face pull? This cable face pull is going to allow that external rotation of that rotator cuff to happen. So I'm building that on up. Sweet. Now I can do 2 to 3 sets, depending on my weeks, depending on where I'm going. You see how these two set us up for success here, and they're targeting that backside and core. You could also, if you really wanted to, you could do a pull-off variation. That anti-rotation would be really good because if you rotate in a squat, you rotate on a bench, you could be having some kind of an issue. So there's no wrong way as long as you understand what is best for your client. And my client, in this case, might be one that's like sitting here and I need to get him here, right? And I need to drive air to that posterior side. This could be great. So now it brings me to my accessories, okay? So I've got my push lower and upper here. They've got both of these. I've got an additional pull, which is great. So I've already kind of covered that gamut there. So I definitely need some form of a lunge to sit on here. And I got to think these other components, right? So I don't have anything overhead. I don't have anything pull. So what if, right? I did, a classic split squat, right? That's great. Down and up, down and up. Let's turn it up one more. So dumbbell split squat. Dumbbells in each hand, right? We're going to go 2 to 3 sets. We're going to go each leg. Now, not only did we get our lunge position, but because our weights are on either side hanging down, we've got our carry. Why does that matter? When you're doing a carry, it's going to turn on your delt, mainly your medial delt, right? To suck that humerus up into the actual section of your shoulder girdle. And so it's that stabilization that is now happening as we're carrying under load, right? So it's actually teaching your shoulder how to stabilize itself, which is a beautiful thing. And we're getting more weight to our lunge. So you're getting a win-win. That's amazing. What if, right? What if? Now we have one more exercise here for 4B. So we're going to go 1A, 1B, superset 2 to 3 times. We're going to do all our squats. We're going to do all our bench. We've got some split squats happening here. Well, we kind of have covered the majority of gamut here. So what if we did something that allowed us to, because again, we can do our hinge and all those other things on the other side. What if we did a landmine, half kneeling, overhead press? So here's why. Now, if you go into that half kneeling position, you've got one knee down. We're getting a stretch of the hip flexors on the one side. So good, stretching the rec fem and everything on that side. And as we press with one arm, right, you're getting some rotational component that is happening, and you're forced to then stabilize your lower body on your glutes. So now we're using our anti-rotation for stabilization from the hips as we rotate from the thorax up above. And we're getting a single arm move. I love to have, if possible, a single arm move as much as you can, just as much as a lunge. It's not one of our like official 6 movement patterns, but if you take away that variability, the things that go away for most people as they age first, power and rotation, transverse plane, and overall ability to accelerate and decelerate. Those things are gone, and then it shifts to frontal plane, right? And then eventually, if we lose our ability to move in our frontal plane, then we lose our ability to walk effectively. And that's when it turns to this shuffle, which looks like you're just on cross-country skis, and then you can't rotate. So you rotate your whole body as if your body is like, you know, one solid piece. And it basically has become that way. So we're going to, again, go 2 to 3 sets because this is our little happy circuit. Now, 4C, arms. That's what Bob said he liked to train. The thing I almost always program last for newer clients, right, is the thing that I know is going to make them feel happy. So if Bob wants arms, and this is our push day, triceps are going to be our accessory to our overall pressing variations. This is good stuff. He's going to feel his arms. I'm going to turn it up one more notch though, because I am getting tricep here and I'm getting tricep here. I'm actually going to remove it and put it down on my other day. And then I'm going to give him biceps here. And the reason is we want volume, and we only have 2 days. 2 days, we want to see more volume. If on this day is my pull day, when I am doing a lot of pulling based movements for the upper body, my biceps will be heavily involved the same way my triceps were heavily involved on this pressing day. Therefore, I can get more overall effective volume where he has more capacity on the biceps up here than I would down here, and vice versa with the triceps, therefore getting him better results. And what does he want? He likes arms. If he feels his arms are working and growing in the way that he would like, he is more likely to stay consistent. So it's just pulling back big enough into the picture to see these things. Yes, you could do better things. Yes, you could do more details. Yes, you could be like, oh, I'm going to put him on a bench. We're going to go incline because then we're going to get a full lengthened position. Yes, I understand all of that. Looking at this from a big picture perspective is all we're trying to do. All right, let's go on to part 2, day 2. Whoops, I hit the wrong button. All right, so I'm going to keep our same order. Oftentimes, our same order works really well just from a client simplicity standpoint. So for instance, if I've got my bench and I'm doing a 5x5, well then down here on my deadlift, I'm going to do a 5x5. for reference. If I'm doing more of a hypertrophy focused block and I'm doing a 4x8, because this is Bob's first time starting out, I don't really need him trying to pull a 5x5, press a 5x5. I need to get those joints functioning well again. And I need to get his volume up, and I need to keep him from breaking the body down. The only reason I would go with those lower reps is because then we could actually like pull down the volume. I would just have to mitigate the amount of weight that he used and ramp up effectively and safely from there. Okay. But again, many different ways, just going the whole big picture here. Let's go here. So because our first one was a lower body, I like to just flip it. So my first bigger one here is going to be upper. Also, I find it's easier to burn out from an upper standpoint with your pull than it is your lower standpoint, i.e., it is harder to do pull-ups or chin-ups later in the game than it is to do them sooner in the game for most human beings. You can do them the other way. It depends on what your capacity is and what you're trying to target. You may not even be ready for said things, and that's great. That is okay, right? So let's give him a lat pull down. Again, there's going to be his 3 to 4 sets. And then let's give him his hinge pattern, right? We've got our main pull. Now we've got our main hinge. He's just starting out. This is where you would really want to determine based on his length of femurs, length of torso, where it is. That would all be figured out during your assessment and figure out which hinge pattern moves best for him. But let's say that we're going to go with, again, because he likes dumbbells, dumbbell RDL. And we're going to go for 3 to 4 sets here. Let's start putting it together. So now we definitely are going to be in this hinged position where the lats are utilized to stabilize the pelvis while the hamstrings are engaged. Cool. We did exhaust the lats a little bit here first. So if he is experiencing any kind of pain or overly fatigued and going into the lower back, flip these. That would be common sense and logical because muscles either move things from insertion to origin or they are a functional stability aspect of whatever it is that their joint they're trying to stabilize. I didn't say that well, but you got what I was going for. And so ultimately we may need to flip these, and that's okay. So how do we use primers for these two exercises? Or do we need to? They are already on the posterior side that we are targeting. Many different ways to do it, of course, right? If you are now thinking of the fact that, well, we got some rotation that was happening here, right? Because you've gotten the one leg, it's basically your running mechanics is going out. You are getting some rotational components, very slight. You've got some rotational components here, some anti-rotational components here, but it's all frontal plane, which is great. You got that direct face pull there, rotator cuff. So do we need to work a squat to prime us here? Not really, right? But could we use some form of a single leg or some type of stabilizer? Absolutely, right? We definitely could. So there's many different ways to do it. But I'm going to now think, well, what are the positions that I haven't gotten into, right? And so for me, I'm like, all right, well, I could do a side plank. And the reason being is if I'm getting the obliques and everything turned on here and I'm teaching the shoulder how to stabilize in this position, it's an open position I haven't been able to target yet. I'm getting my body to learn these these lateral positions of stability and compression to the rib cage that I haven't targeted really anywhere else. I didn't do some form of like single arm dumbbell press, right? And so this is why this could be really good. I don't really need to turn on a lot of stuff for the lat pull down to work. I just don't want to go into too much extension. Same thing with the dumbbell RDL, right? I want my lats to be ready to go, but they will be ready to go because they're already worked from up in here, right? So what else could I do? What I need to do? I could have done a pull off press here too. That would have been good. I could do some single leg that would really activate the glutes. So I could do some form of a mini band lateral. I could do some form of a reverse sled, right? Where I'm getting more of the quad fibers, especially the knee stabilizers, to activate some type of a TKE, terminal knee extensions. All of these would be good options based on what he's after. If we are really feeling good, I would go with a low step up or a step down isolation, because now we're getting our single leg, getting it early in the game. Oftentimes for people that are doing hinges, especially when they are new or back to the game, we step up. We honestly would really like to have their glutes and core really fired up before they hinge. So now I'm covering all those boxes. I gave you a couple options as I was talking through, but that's what I would go for here, right? Works out really well. It doesn't have any type of issues. We've already got our triceps, so we're already down to two main things. This is great, okay? So last two things, I'm gonna still go with what we've missed. We did a single leg lunge based, right? We did a single leg based, we're doing a step up. So we're pretty solid there, but we haven't done a single arm pull based. So I'm gonna put an emphasis on a dumbbell 3-point row. And it may even be split stance or even knee supported, depending on the fact that this has gotten pretty worked with that lower aspect of the back for stabilization. And I want to make sure that good old Bob is feeling nice, right? And then the last option, we've got really the ideal to target any of these missing pieces, okay? So for me, I want to still try and get him core work that he doesn't like, right? But he also really does like arms. He does like dumbbells. We know these things are happening. We've got him in almost all these other positions. We just didn't get any direct shoulder work, right? Other than the single arm. So this is where you can add an isolation and just really, or an isolation exercise to really like solidify. So you've got a couple options. You could do a dumbbell inverse fly, dumbbell lateral raise, could be good, cable lateral raise, frontal raise. You could have him do a push-up variation if he's into that. The options are kind of endless on what you feel would solidify in that realm. I would again go for targeting something like a lateral raise. If he's missing the calves, you could do some kind of a calf position. So good for so many reasons to train the calves, and it's not just aesthetics at all, right? If you want to do some form of a lateral move, we already have our lateral base, which is our side plank, and then we're getting our anti-rotation component here from our step up and our dumbbell row that is happening. And you could even make it a reach so you get the rotational component. But my options would be based on the individual to make sure that they like it, right? If he's more arm, upper body focused, I'm going to do a dumbbell lateral raise, right? If he's more focused on lower body strength, stability, like maybe he's a cyclist or something like that, and you had these other pieces of information, then it's like a lateral lunge, Cossack squat, any of those types of things would be really smart because you're going to get the inside thigh even a little bit more, even though you could turn up the side plank to do so. But I'm going to give him this. Hopefully those other examples made sense as to why I was making them as suggestions. Okay. So here's what's great. Now I can design my warm-up based on understanding Bob super well. I would have designed that probably first had he had injuries or anything that I needed to work on with limitations. Again, we don't. So with a release, right? I'm honestly just going to have him do a very simple breathing exercise because we don't have, that's for reset. Because we don't have anything that he needs to target, right? Quads and upper T-spine. So I'm going to have him come in. He's going to foam roll his quads and his T-spine. It's not that I need foam rolling to do any magical goodness. It's really just that it's going to allow him to kind of change his mind. Environment dictates behavior, and the tool is a physical way to break the cycle of what you were doing and the position and the thoughts and the behaviors and start new. And just utilizing the same tool over and over again will help his body start to go into quote unquote workout mode. So I'm going to have him just do a little bit of light rolling, literally 20 seconds on each, because he doesn't have anything going on wrong. But I know that if we loosen up the quads each time, life's going to be better. If we loosen up that upper back, life's going to move better. He's going to breathe better. Then I'm going to have him do a crocodile breathing. It's nothing fancy. Or, right, a bretzel. I don't really care. I just want his central nervous system to not come in and be fired and wired and be like, ready to go in a way that's not conducive and helpful to him. And I want to teach him to drive air to different aspects of his body when we need to brace and drive air for our main strength training moves. So now we're going to go into his readiness, right? I've already got him on the ground. So I'm thinking like, can I give him like 5 exercises? I mean, his warm up here is pretty solid. Like with it's kind of continuation of warm up. A lot of times these would be considered warm up exercises in both of these. And so I'm going to just give him some thread the needle, right? So he's got some rotational component for his upper back, which is great. How about we give him a quadruped adductor rock back? So now we're getting that inside thigh to loosen up as he's pushing back into the hips. This is great. Then how about we stand him up, right? You know, or let's get him in a hinge actually before we do that. So down dog, up dog. Let's do reverse lunge with posterolateral reach. I didn't spell that all right, but I'm okay with that. There you go. Forgive me if the dog's bark in the background. But doing a reverse lunge, rotating over. Now we're getting stability of the lower body, getting a lunge pattern again, which is really great. And then how about we do a kettlebell windmill? So now we actually load up, stabilize the shoulder, and get him in that ready position and do a few. And then we're going to go into reactive. Okay. So day one, we're going to, oh my gosh, I keep hitting the wrong button here, guys. Forgive me. Day one is session 1 here. And we're going to just give him some slam ball stuff. And then day 2 for our reactive, our power based, we're not going to have him doing any kind of cleans and snatches or anything at this point. He's brand new to starting back. So we've got him doing some slam ball here. And then let's have him do some rotational slam ball. Let's keep it real simple. Same tool. He gets in the habit. You can grab it to start. It's just going to do kind of what the foam roller is doing, but now magnified. Okay. And it's got even more of that component to it. So this is really good. So he's going to come in, he's going to foam roll, he's going to get down on the ground, then he's going to croc breathe, and then he's going to do these 3 things. And how long? Let's just go 6 breaths. I'm looking for about 20 seconds. I'm going for 5 each, right? I'm going to go for 10 each. Again, these numbers are really going to be up to you. I'm just looking at, can I get him warmed and ready in 7 minutes and into the workout in a real positive way? I also am going to give him real simple numbers and things that he can move through quickly, because people don't want to be doing a 20-minute warm up, right? They want to get to the gains, right? We're going to slam the slam ball really hard, and we're going to go through 8. And then this could be the same, but we're going to do less because we're going to go each side. Okay. So ultimately, now he's prepared and ready to go. And once he has this down, this is going to be a 5 to 7 minute dealio. Then he's going to be on to his exercises. And then it's going to come down to selecting your reps, right? So when it comes to your reps, look at your mains first. That's your meat and potatoes. General rules, if it's 3 sets, you could get away with anything in that sweet spot hypertrophy range of 8 to 15. On your bigger things like this, obviously I want to try and get into that 8 range. If you're going 4s, right, then kind of that 4x6 is a sweet spot. Oftentimes people, when they're starting out though, 4x6, 4x8, 4x10 would be good. 4x12 just becomes a lot of volume that may be too much to recover from, right? And so we want to take that into account. And so we could literally go 2 to 3 sets, dead bug, we could go 8 on each side, more than enough for him to start. Cable face pulls is a smaller muscle group. It's your rotator cuff. So we could go 12 to 15 reps, right? Your goblet squat, we could go that 8 to 12, 6 to 8, 6 to 8 here as well. And so maybe it's that you do that first week, 3 sets, 8 reps, right? Second week, 4 sets, 8 reps. So then it probably just went up and he's like, whoa, this feels good. 4 sets, week 3, 6 reps. Now we can go heavier, right? And then week 4, I might go 6 to 8. Again, he's new. I don't need him to do a deload week. He hasn't been training enough to need a deload, right? So now I'm going to go back to this 6 to 8 range, right? So I could go 8 with the 3 sets, 8 with the 4 sets, because he's probably not going to be pushing that heavy yet. He's going to be figuring it out. Now he can push heavy. Now I'm going to go 4 sets, but I want him to try and keep pushing past what that is. And I'm going to use this by week 4. He's really kind of adapting. I'm going to use this as my gauge so that I'm like, dude, if you can do 8 reps, you go up. I want you to keep going up until we're failing, or feeling like we only have 1 or 2 reps left in the tank in that 6 to 8 rep range. Apply that the same to your bench. Good to go. Start here. We start light because he's already smoked from 3 sets of 8 goblet squat. First time doing this back, right? What if we went 5 and then we went 6 and then we went 8, right? And then we either went up in weight or we went up in reps and we gave him those choices. Let's give him time to build up, right? Let's go 6 reps each side. Let's go 8 reps each side. Let's go 10 reps each side. Let's go 12 reps each side. Let's let him build that capacity here, right? And then same thing with his curls. Let's just keep it real simple so that with curls, it's his one thing. He's going to want to see progression. So because it's the thing he likes, things he wants to see progression with, I'm going to make sure it is a linear approach and he's going to just focus on going up in weight. Helpful? Hope so. Apply the same thing down here within those same parameters. Oftentimes, I will keep the exact same methodology for the most part, as long as it works. First one doesn't really work. I may start with 15 seconds. He's a newbie. And then I may try and end up here by 45 seconds. Works really well. Again, step ups probably doesn't work here. I might go 6 to 10 within that whole range, trying to pull it on up. Flats, I might go 8, 8. Again, it's hard to pull super heavy there and keep massively effective form. So this might be where then I'm going to go up in my reps as I increase here. Again, 6 to 8, I kind of like this, like working on controlled tempo, good to go. My dumbbell rep range here, honestly, could be 8 to 12 within this. Same thing, small muscle group, and then a smaller muscle group as well. So because of that, when you're thinking small muscles, they are muscular endurance based more than they are strength based. You're not doing a 1 rep max on a tricep extension. And if you are, you're blowing out your elbows and you're a complete idiot. And, you go ahead and enjoy that. So ultimately, if you look at the fact that we're trying to now drive just volume through the back, I want to try and get a little bit more here. But I still want to go heavy. So I'm going to work in that hypertrophy zone. Now, again, this is 1 month without looking at an entire periodization for a client. This is looking at one tiny scope. I'm keeping his overall goals in mind. As I go, I am going to try and work towards probably having 5 to 10% of his workout being strength-based eventually, meaning I want him in that sub 6 rep range once we are moving well. So we are not only strengthening the entire body's muscular system, but also change the joints, the skeletal system, the tendons. And so that he's not just doing all this hypertrophy and then end up with some kind of tendonitis, right? Like I actually want him to get stronger so that he can then go heavier on the dumbbells and the things for his hypertrophy. And then his hypertrophy is going to feed his strength. So for him, honestly, like 70% is probably going to be hypertrophy, right? Based, which is going to be that 8 to 12 rep range, 8 to 15, depending on smaller groups. And then that leaves us with almost 20% of muscular endurance that we want to, again, work towards. That's not an A, that's a U, but you get what I'm saying. And so we'll work into that eventually as well for him. But this would be a great starter plan, 2 days. Maybe we can get him on a 3rd day, and then it becomes a lot easier to add in these accessories, right? Which would be really, really good, because then I can do even more core work without him complaining. Now, so just get this thing out of the way. All right. So that said, now that brings me to the last 2 pieces, resiliency. So based on how this is then finished, right? I probably would stop there for him on the first several weeks. And then I would try and introduce, based on him starting to finish well on week 3, let's jump on the bike, the rower, the ropes, and do some form of small interval. And it's usually going to be kind of that classic lactic power that I would start with, which is your 20 to 30 second intervals that are conditioning based, as opposed to lactic capacity, where it's going to be that 40 to 2.5 minute mark. I'm going to start smaller with something like a rope or a bike, so he's not going to be super pissed off and destroyed, and work him into it. And then on my next phase, then I am going to work in hopefully maybe some sled sprints, right? Because again, his main goal here is weight loss, muscle gain. So we want those quick reaction fibers to work well. We want to have that aid the rest of the workout. So maybe one of the days it's going to be that, hopefully alactic power training, or at least alactic capacity, alactic power being 5 to 8 second sprint where it's all out. He may not be physically ready for that. So maybe it's lactic capacity where it's that 8 to 12 seconds. He can push, but he's not going to push so hard that he can't handle it. And oftentimes it's your people that are in super great shape that hurt themselves because they actually have the physical strength to produce the power in order to hurt themselves. So you have to worry about them more than someone like Bob, who honestly doesn't have the physical power yet to be able to hurt himself. As long as you've got him in the right move, doing the right exercises with the right weight and control, he's going to be set. So that's something that's really good to consider. And so we may just want to know that he's not going to produce enough power to get into that and give him that capacity range of that 8 to 12 seconds on this day of something. And then something a little bit more longer endurance based where it's going to be closer to that 1 minute mark, right? Of on and off that he could work for here and then get him doing some zone 2 outside of this, right? So that's in a nutshell of one style, of one form, but I hope it helps, gives you a framework to be able to start to build and have conceptually understanding from a warm-up all the way through to why I'm choosing primers that will hopefully be the antagonist to stabilize the body for these other elements and where to go from there. So as always, if you have any questions, reach on out. Looking forward to continuing the educational pieces with future conversations.